This is God of War with HDR, HLG HDR, that same setting I was showing on the previous video. And instead of dynamic tone mapping on, we have HGIG and no black frame insertion. So no BFI. And I'm gonna show you a comparison. I'm gonna switch from this setting, which is HGIG. I'm gonna switch from this to black frame insertion and dynamic tone mapping on, and you will see it's about the same luminance level, which is perfect. Let me show you. We're gonna turn on black frame insertion and change the HDR tone mapping on. So you see it's a lot darker. We come here, so that's not a good, it doesn't look good, it's too dark. But we come here, brightness, dynamic tone mapping on, boom, the same luminance level. So now let me tell you this, the colors look a little bit washed out in comparison, and it is killing the highlights, so it does not look better. It looks like lower contrast, but what's going on here is really having a lower contrast because you don't have pop. So for example, let's look at the character itself. You see this metallic thing that he uses to put his axe. There's no pop, there's no brightness on that metallic thing. It looks flat in comparison. This looks great. I would play like this. There's no black crush. But if we compare this with, I have the mouse doing something. Okay, if we compare this with HGIG and black frame insertion off, this is the way I'm gonna play this game specifically, because I like a lot how it looks and I want to. So this is too bright. See, the tone mapping and black frame insertion off with this HLG HDR is too much, and you're not getting pop anyway. It doesn't look, it is not looking, it's not popping, it's looking less, like less contrast. Everything is too raised. That's why, with black frame insertion, that's why it looks so good. That's why, because everything is more raised than it should be. That's why it looks like there's no black frame insertion, and that's the whole point. So, but we changed this to HGIG, and of course, you will see, oh, it's actually dimmer now. But if you look at this, it's popping. Maybe on the video you cannot see that small detail, but I can see it, and I can tell you this looks a lot better because this shiny gold surface, for example, here, all this shiny gold surface is popping. It is, the brightness is higher, of course, because there's no black frame insertion. You get a higher brightness. So the way I would play this game, I'm gonna test the regular HDR, but here's the problem. The regular HDR from the game is all messed up and I have to use dynamic tone mapping. So what I have to test with my cell phone, I am going to test the highlights and see if I am getting a brighter highlights with with the regular HDR and dynamic tone mapping on. And my guess is that yes, I would get better highlights. But here's what I'm gonna have to consider. Would I take better highlights in exchange for a better gamma curve? Because these games that are coming out with the HDR setting all messed up, you go to SDR and they look more colorful and you don't have any problem to see on the dark, you don't have any issues. Okay, so if we take that as a base, if you take the SDR option as a base, and then you add this HLG HDR, and now it looks less flat than SDR. It doesn't look as with that pop that HDR would give you, but you don't need to mess around with the settings. You don't need to do anything. You just turn on that HLG HDR, and you go to the game menu, and you have the brightness slider on the default position, and you're all set. You don't need to do anything. Do you want black frame insertion? Okay, turn on black frame insertion, dynamic tone mapping on. Do you prefer to get a more pop and a better quality image? Turn on turn off that dynamic tone mapping, change it to HGIG, and then turn off Motion Pro. That's it. So it's an easy way to set up perfect luminance on every single game. So I need to test HGIG on other games. So far, this is the only game I've tested with HGIG, and it's looking perfect. Like, I have no complaints. I do need to test highlights. I see the sky with the clouds are looking good, and they are looking bright, but I'm not sure about in fact, let me just do this. Let me turn off this setting, HLG HDR. Let me turn off this setting, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn on HDR on Windows, and I'm gonna do a comparison right now. So let me do this. So the way you turn off this setting is you come here, you press 111.3.111, and you come here to this secret menu, EOTF, change it to auto. So you see that on auto is a lot dimmer. Let me see what's going on here. This on auto. My game optimizer settings are everything 100%. Well, it's looking a lot dimmer. What's going on here? Everything is maxed out. Color. Let me see if black frame insertion is on. Oh yeah, that's what's going on. Black frame insertion is on. So for example, comparing that with the regular SDR setting on the game, it looks, the sky is brighter. It looks with about the same luminance on the dark, about the same. I would say it is, yeah, it's about the same luminance on the dark, but it's definitely, this feels flat in comparison. So SDR, the game on SDR, feels flat in comparison. Like, for example, I'm getting no shininess on that gold. I'm not getting any pop. So if I see this again, this small detail that he uses to carry the axe, I see no shininess, no pop. This looks a lot flat, like super flat in comparison. But what I'm interested in testing right now is the HDR from the game. So let's do that. Let me go back to Windows. Let me go back to Windows and turn on HDR. And this is gonna be, I have to change the settings on the game to HDR. HDR on. This is the default values of HDR. And then this is super dark. Let's make sure that we turn off Motion Pro, and let's turn on dynamic tone mapping. This is super dark right now. I think the recording is gonna be interrupted. Let me turn on dynamic tone mapping. Okay, so let me do a quick comparison here before the recording goes down. So the sky looks brighter, but I see no clouds. There's no detail on the sky. So this is not looking good. It's blowing out. There's no detail on the sky. It looks darker. It looks darker. There is, yeah, there's no more, I don't see more pop. This does not look better. Sorry. It does not look better. Try it yourself. It does not look better. Especially the clouds are completely blown out. Like, I don't see any detail on the cloud. It's like a white thing. It's terrible. Like, that setting that I just discovered is doing a much better job than the HDR from the developers. 100%. And you don't need to mess around with the sliders. You don't need to do anything. See, that's dark. And I don't have Motion Pro on. I cannot even use Motion Pro. It would be even worse. So there you go.